Greg Cosell to join us in his weekly appearance on One Bills Live is presented by Pepsi. Pepsi is the official soft drink of the Buffalo Bills. Food deserves Pepsi. All right, Greg, holiday weekend here. We've already had 3 games in the books on Christmas Day. Got some others on Saturday before the Bills play Sunday afternoon in the big window game. So in this one, I think it's interesting because both offenses in this game have turned to their run game to try to find some stability on offense. Eagles have done it the last 2 weeks against the Raiders and Commanders, and Barkley has delivered for the most part in settling down their offense. And we know James Cook has been the linchpin for the Bills' offense, at least in making things right and manufacturing some stability there. Which offense do you feel stands a better chance of getting on track in light of the defenses they will be facing in this?
Well, I'll say this about the Eagles. The Eagles never had an identity issue. They just didn't execute their identity well. The Eagles have a specific template. They kind of have to play that way. It's the template that they won the Super Bowl with a year ago. They're a running football team. I mean, people might be surprised that over the last 3 weeks, Barkley has the most carries of any back in the league, and the second most yards. So they're just executing what they have to be better. Their O-line really struggled for a good part of the season, and they were not able to run the ball with any kind of sustainability, or to use your word, Brownie, stability. But this is who they are. And one thing that they've done more of over the last number of weeks, and by the way, they're very good at it, and I would expect it this week, especially because of the nature of Sean McDermott and how he plays on defense, is no huddle and empty formations. I would expect to see both of those. The Eagles are very good at both no huddle and empty, and it really helps Jalen Hurts an awful lot. Look, I don't think it's a secret that the Bills at times this season have struggled to stop the run. I think there's been you would know this, the statistics probably better than I, Brownie, but I think they've had 6 games this year where they've given up 185 or more yards rushing, and they're 4-2 in those games, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah, right.
But they are. But the Eagles will look to run the football. I mean, that's the way they play. Now they might take a few shots, outside the numbers. That's where Hurts is at his best, throwing the ball outside the numbers to Smith and Brown. But for the most part, they're a running football team, and they've gotten Hurts more involved in the run game by design over the last number of weeks as well.
And when you flip it around and stay in, the macro look at everything, the Bills' offense, I don't know that it matches up real well against a defense constructed like the Eagles. I mean, certainly the Eagles have got a good defense, and they're getting Jalen Carter back, which is, I think, a huge, no pun intended, it's huge to get him back. This looks like a little bit like the Atlanta game for the Bills, and it's a bad matchup kind of thing where the front really dictates how their defense plays, and it really looks like it's going to be tough for the Bills to run their type of offense against.
Well, I'm sure we'll find out, obviously, but Jalen Carter's back. Jordan Davis has had a tremendous season. I mean, he's, going back to last year, he started to show signs. This year, he's been absolutely tremendous. So they've got a really nice D-tackle rotation with Carter being back, with Davis, with Ajomo. Nakobe Dean is out this week. He's kind of an important player for them. The rookie Campbell will play. Very athletic guy, but the reason Dean ended up, when he came back, taking pretty much all the snaps is because Dean is so much better at all the adjustments they make. This is a heavily adjustment-based defense, literally snap to snap, and Dean is really good at that, and Campbell, obviously being a rookie, struggles with that. Look, I think we know that the Bills will come out and try to do what they do. I think watching their run game and with what Aaron Cromer does, I think it's phenomenal. I think they're very multiple with their concepts. They'll have to be this week. Look, it's a very good defense. The Eagles have a very, very good defense. There's no getting around it. We'll see. We'll see what the pass game is this week. Obviously, they're telling you by what they're doing at wide receiver that they're struggling. I mean, Coleman and Davis were healthy scratches. They obviously are not really strong at wide receiver. We'll see, how much they play with 2 tight ends and see if they can get Kincaid involved and see how the Eagles choose to defend the tight ends. I mean, we saw, for instance, in the Super Bowl that the Eagles matched up Cooper DeJean on Kelsey quite a bit. Will they match him up on Kincaid situationally? That's something you could see.
Yeah, I know that a lot of opposing offenses have targeted Adoree Jackson, when he comes on the
Yes.
field in the nickel. Would you anticipate the Bills trying to find
Well,
that matchup as well?
he's actually their starter. Basically they played nickel pretty much. They may play near the highest percentage of nickel in the league. It's probably in the 75% range. Now the question is, what will they do? Because the Bills are a heavy base personnel offense.
Yeah.
So the question, the Eagles are likely to go base, I would assume. That obviously also takes DeJean away from the ball, and he's a very good run defender for a nickel. So we'll see, but we know the Bills are not a heavy 11 personnel offense. They do line up a lot with really more with a fullback than they do with 12 personnel, but more 12 personnel lately. Knox has been getting a lot more snaps. I'd be real curious to see how the Eagles choose to defend it. Jackson, he's been better over the last month. Early in the season, he was a liability. He's been better over the last month. The question is, how are they going to attack him? The Bills are not really a throw the ball outside the numbers one-on-one matchup pass game. That's not really the way they've played.
Right.
They're not a matchup pass offense with their wide receivers.
Why are the Eagles so good against the pass? They're top 7 in yards per game, number 4 in yards per attempt.
Lowest passer rating.
What's the biggest reason for that success defensively?
I think that on the back end, they're really good for a number of reasons. Number one, they've got a great corner in Mitchell. I think, I watch the Eagles every week, as you guys know. I think he's a top 3-4 corner in the league. They play more man coverage than people might think, but they start out with a lot of sort of a quarters umbrella look. And what they do a lot of is they'll take that safety to the boundary side, because Mitchell's the boundary corner. He's the corner to the short side of the field, and they will let him essentially play zero man, and they'll bring Blankenship, who's their boundary safety, and they'll bring him right into the middle, and they'll squeeze the middle down. So they squeeze the middle down, and it's hard to work the middle of the field against the Eagles' pass defense because of what Mitchell can do on the outside and what they allow him to do to essentially play zero man. And look, I think it's fair to say, without we're not talking out of school here, that there's probably not a wide receiver on the Bills that the Eagles would not feel comfortable with Mitchell matching up zero man against.
And that also plays into the fact the Bills, their passing game kind of funnels through the tight ends running back, which kind of speak to the middle of the field. I mean, that seems like a rock and a hard place.
So, to me, and this is, and because I watch so many teams, as you guys know, and I get so focused on route concepts and combinations and how coaches put all that together, in some ways, to me, this becomes very much a Joe Brady game, because everything I just said this is not something that I just know. If I know it, everybody knows it, Steve, quite frankly. I mean, I'm just one guy sitting watching tape. Coaching staffs know all this. So now Joe Brady knows this. He knows more than I do. So right now, he's figuring out how he can attack this defense with the pass, because more than likely, look, James Cook's had a phenomenal year. You could argue he should be in the MVP conversation, but looking at this defense and the way they've played all year, I'd be surprised if the Bills are going to run for 180 yards. I mean, that would surprise me. If they do, more power to them, and it'd be wonderful for them. But I would think they're going to have to throw the ball somewhere along the line in this game and have sustaining success. It's not a matter of Josh Allen throwing for 350. That doesn't happen against the Eagles defense. But you're going to have some kind of sustaining success throwing the football.
Do you see any way that with Campbell in the lineup for them defensively that Bond would get the green dot for any reason, or do you think they just trust Campbell and say make the best of it?
No, they don't trust Campbell like that. I don't think. Again, I don't want to speak for Vic Fangio, but I would not think that Campbell would get the green dot.
So it's probably
that's
Bond,
one of the
then.
things he struggled with. So I think it would be Bond.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious as to how those logistics might work.
Yeah.
And then what do you make of? I mean, because it looks like the weather's going to be awful here on Sunday. Sleet changing to rain, a lot of rain, which is just like it was 2 years ago when these two teams played in Philadelphia in a driving rainstorm. That was on grass. This will be on turf. So hopefully footing is a little bit better. My question is about Goedert because, 10 touchdowns is hard to ignore. He leads or is tied for the league lead amongst all tight ends with 10 receiving touchdowns. Have all of those taken place in the red zone, or has he making some hay? Has he made some hay between the 20s as well as far as their passing game goes?
The large number, I don't know offhand. I would bet 7, 8. I can think of one that was not the red zone, but I would say that a high percentage have been red zone design specific plays. So he's a very good player. I've always really thought Dallas Goedert was an excellent tight end. But those are schemed plays, Brownie. Schemed red zone plays that have been very effective. I mean, that's what teams do in the red zone. A lot of teams, you scheme up specific plays, and he's been the recipient of those plays.
Yeah, they're number one in red zone efficiency. I mean, they're good when they get down there. And the obvious question: how much of that is the tush push that gives them, a goal line kind of running play? But like you say, it's not just that.
No, but I will say this one thing about the Eagles, and if they get back to where they were, which they're starting to incrementally, back to where they were a year ago, they are a 4-down offense. You have to be really careful about how you play them on 3rd down, because when it's 3rd and 8, that's not automatic pass for the Eagles. Because if they run the ball, let's say when they get to the minus 45 and past that, certainly into plus territory, Steve, if it's 4th and 3 or less, they're going for it. So that changes the way they play 3rd down and the way you have to defend 3rd down. So, for instance, a lot of zone teams, you know how it is. They rally up and tackle, and it's 4th and 2, and 99% of the teams in the league punt. The Eagles don't punt. They go for it on 4th down, and that's a big deal within the context of their offense.
Last one I got for you, Greg. A.J. Brown obviously has been heavily targeted the last few weeks. Ever since, I don't know how I would describe it, a little disconnect, shall we say, between the quarterback and the receiver, in the middle part of the season. That seems to have righted itself. Do you think all is well in Eagle passing game land?
Well, I think over the last number of weeks, they've done a much better job with their pass game concepts. I can't speak to why they didn't do this earlier in the year. That's a why question. You'd have to be in their building to know that. But over the last number of weeks, they've really expanded their pass game concepts. As I said, I think the no huddle and the empty formations have helped as well. That no huddle, one reason I mentioned the no huddle and the empty versus Sean is because I think Sean's one of the absolute best in the league at changing the picture pre-snap to post-snap. And if you go no huddle and empty, you limit the ability of the defense to do that. And of course, this is something that the Bills and Sean know, so they'll have in their mind an answer for it. But it's different than if a team huddles up and comes to the line of scrimmage, and you as a defense have a chance then to call out adjustments and communicate. So I think you will see that in this game, and I'll be curious to see how the Bills react.
Last one from me, Greg. So they're coming off a 2-game winning streak, but they beat the Raiders and Commanders. 3 weeks before that, they were on a 3-game losing streak. They lost to the Cowboys, they lost to the Bears, and they lost to the Chargers. Now, the Bears and the Chargers are in the playoff mix, no question. The Cowboys are not, although they have a great offense. What was the biggest reason why the Eagles went into a 3-game swoon there, if there is a generalization you can make?
Well, I think offensively they struggled most of the year. I think it's been a tough go offensively. Obviously being in the Philadelphia area, you know what sports talk radio is like. Everybody's, went from being a genius a year ago when they won a Super Bowl to being an idiot. You know how that works. But it was mostly offense based. They could not run the football, Steve, and they were a running team. I mean, Barkley's rushing numbers through the first, 9, 10 weeks of the season were really poor. They could not run the ball. And that's who they are. That's who they have to be. And they've done a much better job of that lately. So, I think that's really helped. And again, as I said, the no huddle and the empty have really opened up their pass game much more so. In an ideal world, this is not a team that wants to have Jalen Hurts drop back 35 or 40 times. They would love it to be where he drops back 25 to 28 times a game, and they control the tempo and flow of the game running the football, and then their defense holds down the other team, and then they pull away late because then they wear you out.
Greg, thanks as always. Appreciate it. Have a good weekend. We'll catch up with you next week.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Always
Thanks,
love
Greg.
it. Take care.
That's
You
Greg
bet.
Cosell, senior producer from NFL Films, joining us. And we remind you, Bills Mafia, it's tailgating season. And there's nothing better than Pepsi Zero Sugar to pair with your favorite tailgating food rituals before the game. As the great Josh Allen once said, Bills fans deserve Pepsi. Make sure that you stock up for game day. Go Bills.